look at you with a nice camera.
Oh yeah. Hey, can you hear me good? Can you hear this?
Oh yeah, I can be great.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right, man. How's it going?
Oh, it's going okay. Yeah, I think a little better than last time.
All
Bit
right,
tired.
that's good.
Bit tired. My cat got spayed yesterday, so been a bit of a bit of a night and a day, but
Okay. All right. I don't have pets, so I don't know.
well, it's an intense surgery. And then she for some reason this morning woke up and woke me up in a cat nado. She
Okay.
just freaked out and was just like jumping and like spinning and twirling and knocking things. I have no idea what happened. I had to grab like a towel and throw it over her because she was clawing the crap out of me.
Wow. Okay.
And then kind of try to like calm her down. And yeah, so it was wild. So hopefully she didn't tear apart her insides, but we'll see.
I
She
I hope not.
she seems okay. So
All right, that's good.
um anyway, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good, man. Can't complain. Just got off work, so sorry I'm a little late, but yeah, literally just got off work, so got everything together and I'm good.
All right. See. Huh.
Um, so I don't know if you're getting things together, but I did obviously, I want to give you an opportunity to go kind of down the line of questioning or whatever you want to do. But I did have a lot of notes. So I reviewed our last debate a little bit, and I think the biggest thing here is last debate. We kind of started off with you maybe either reviewing like my word choice or understanding kind of my um, worldview or how I'm uh, executing my vegan activism. I don't think I really understand because my goal in every call is to try and convince you to be vegan or try and get you to understand veganism or whatever it is, or to see if you align with veganism. And I don't think I did a very good job of understanding where your preferences and values are. So if you don't mind, if we could start, I have a couple clarifying questions for you, just because I just kind of want to understand your position. Because last time you said you used to be vegan and then you stopped being vegan because your philosophy on suffering changed. So I didn't really ask you more about that. So I am interested in that. And then just a couple questions. Is that cool if we started that way?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool. So there's a couple things here that I think I don't know, like, because the last time you asked me, well, when you say should, what do you mean by should? I think when I say like you should be vegan on the sign, um, first off, I'm doing like a one-on-one thing, right? And when I say should, it's with the assumption that the person that I'm talking to generally has similar values to myself, So with that in mind, I want to see if you have similar values to me or preferences, right? So um, I guess to start, so you agree that morality or what I said, it sounded like you agree that it's preferences, right? It's kind of like an organization of preferences, right?
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that.
Now, last time um, you mentioned you don't really believe in morality, right? Or maybe you could clarify that if that's mischaracterization, if that's mischaracterizing you, but that's what it sounded
No,
like.
yeah, I don't think you're mischaracterized. I think I said that
Yeah,
literally.
yeah, I think you did say that, yeah.
And that's just like an informal shorthand. The my I think my further explanation was, and my view on it is that um m- that morality is just kind of a linguistic game that people play. They apply these words to things that have to do with interactions between agents or
Okay.
actions upon other agents, right? Um, and that I take it to the extent of trying to reduce my use of moral language myself, any sort of normative language, like you should do this, you shouldn't do that, or this is
Hmm.
good, that's bad. Um, I know there are some anti-realists um, who they still support the use of that kind of language because they'll say something like, well, I still find it useful because it's a cultural thing and people use this language and then I can say it and it just means that I have this preference or I like this or I dislike that. And I think what happens is it causes confusion, especially when we compare it to other things in the world, when we use this language. And I see this a lot. And I was going over some of vegan Gaines's old debates, and I was trying to scrutinize and break down and seeing how there is this like fluid back and forth between using like these moral terms, even though he's a subjectivist, I think, using these moral terms as though they are objective things, like, oh, that's
Hmm.
moral, that's immoral, why are you doing this immoral thing, right? When the person themselves have already stated that they don't hold that to be a moral feeling or obligation or something moralistic.
Right, right.
And so I feel like, anyway, to try and wrap this up, just that my view on morality is it's just behaviors and preferences, attraction and repulsion, and then a community of agents, like using a language game to kind of be confident about it. There's a confidence
Okay.
aspect. Like I'm sure you can understand there's like a rhetorical power to something when you say you're wrong, you shouldn't do that, that is wrong, as opposed to I don't like that, I would
Sure.
rather you not do that. And so you can kind of see this movement to using that in a like a rhetorical way. That's
Okay.
how I.
Okay. No, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So you don't believe in absolutes like wrong, should, I understand that. Um, but my question is, so like in the world that we live in, do you think, or in your worldview, do you think that we should be organizing our preferences and values based on a consensus? So, like, if morality is preferences, do you think that as a society, right, we should organize those preferences based on a consensus?
You see how easy it is for that word to come in? Do I think that we should? You see, like that normative word, how easy it is for.
Okay, okay. Sorry, let me reframe it. I think you.
I understand what you're saying, and I'll
Oh,
answer your
okay, okay.
question. I just wanted to point that out. That's like it's so easy because we use this language all the time. So to answer that, how I would answer it is, I have a preference for that kind of thing, right? In the world of agents that can interact and make contracts with each other, so to speak, and where we're kind of like forced into this world where this is what we have to deal with.
Hmm.
I'm a fan of democracy,
Okay.
and
Yeah, I'm just
so
focusing on you. So I'm just focusing on your preferences. So you're saying you have a preference for us to organize our preferences based on consensus, or if you want to call it morals, whatever.
um not and so I mean not always, right? Because sometimes I won't necessarily agree with a consensus, and a consensus might be something that is against my preferences for that specific thing, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
um but um but I do recognize that this is kind of like a situation that we have to deal with, and there's no other way for me to get around it. I mean, so a lot of people might take some things I say and say, "Oh, so you're a might makes right person," because that gets tossed around a lot. I don't I don't believe that, at least on face value, the way a lot of people say it, that might makes right, because I don't believe in right or wrong necessarily. I do see the effects of power and forces in the world, though. And what it comes down to is anybody who has a sufficient superior power will get the thing that they want to get, because there won't be a sufficient power to oppose that, right? And so those are the kind of things we're dealing with in the world. That's just a reality. Um, I don't know if that's just to supply some other context for where this might go, but go
Yeah, yeah.
continue.
No, no, I appreciate it, but I like I said, I totally understand where you're coming from. I just really want to understand your values, right? Your individual values. So, um,
Oh, maybe something else can help then.
uh-huh.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad you brought this up, is there's there with all the vegans I've interacted with, and I say all of them, but I can't accurately ensure, like confidently say that, but the vast majority, and especially the people who use NTT, I've found, and especially like after our discussion and then people in the comment thread and stuff like that, I find people come to this, come approaching me with a kind of presupposition about values.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, um, there's like this expectation that people should have this like ideological value that comes down to like a one word thing or a one concept thing, like in this case, like sentience, and that you should value this one thing that they've reduced it down to, when it can be reduced down in different ways and at different levels depending on your personal preference, right? And that you should be consistent with that ideological value at all times across the board. They're coming with this presupposition like that is the way it should be, and so that's something I don't accept about values, and so I want to like point that out initially.
Sure, yeah, I don't hold that view. So here's the thing. I value, and I think a lot of people who are vegan, or not even vegan, but a lot of people who, a lot of people do value having consistency or having logical consistency, especially when we are talking about our preferences and morals and things that can cause harm or suffering to a sentient being. But that's I have a whole thing. We're gonna get into that. But to start, again, I just want to understand where, because here's the thing: if you are coming from a position where you kind of like you don't want laws protecting humans or animals, like if you're coming from a position where you pretty much have like an anarchist view, where people, if they have a preference, are going to like, or are allowed to act on it, and then other people who don't have those preferences are supposed to not, or fight them or whatever. Like, I'm just trying to get an idea of, do you think we should be, I know you said obviously you may not agree with the moral consensus. Believe me, I don't agree with the moral consensus most of the time, but the reason why we have a moral consensus and we create laws and regulations around those preferences is to seemingly, create a world with less suffering, less injustice, and more well-being for the most part. So I'm just trying to understand if like your preference is like, if you think we should have regulation or laws around morals or around preferences in this case, if you want to break it down further.
Yeah, well, I'd have to address kind of the way you set that up, right? Because
Okay.
where you said it seems to be the case that we are doing this to reduce harm, and you kind of put that in a generalized, like universal sense. I don't believe that that's what people are doing, because people, they vote on specific things for specific groups, and that may be the group of humanity, that may be the group of nation states, that may be the group of communities. When it comes to more like just on a cultural or societal level, that doesn't have to do with legislation or anything. It could, and voting, it could be come down to their families, their community groups,
Okay.
personal. So I don't see that so that was kind of that leap that I see happening to this like generalization or universalization of like harm or well-being for anything that can experience it. I don't think
Okay,
that's the.
so yeah, let me give you an actual example. So when we have a law that makes it illegal to carry out pedophilia, right? So when we have a law that makes it illegal to carry out pedophilia, um, for somebody's preference, right? Pedophilia may not be wrong or immoral, or they may have a preference to act out sexually against children. But based on our moral consensus, right? Based on our gets to the consensus of our preferences as a society, we have chosen that by and large, we reject that preference, and then we create laws around rejecting that preference. And I would say that the reasoning, and I'm going to get into this too further along, but the reasoning why, by and large, we reject that preference. Again, we could argue, you could argue, well, it's just a push and pull, whatever. But I think that logic and reasoning, we can use logic and reasoning as tools to actually argue what preferences should be rejected and shouldn't be, right? Or when I say should, again, based on logic and reasoning as to the harm or the well-being they cause or whatever it is. So my question is like, do you think for something like pedophilia, for example, do you think that based on your values, based on your preferences, that we should have laws, or there should be laws in place rejecting the preference for pedophilia?
So I have to say that there's it's kind of this thing, that this format. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's just the way that you express it. It's kind of like with the last question. You set it up in this way, like you said this one thing about logic and reasoning, and you think that we can do this, and then you ask a question. But the question, like, I need to address the thing that you said before. At least I feel compelled to do that, right? Because I'm interested, because there's such a loading there from my point of view when you said we can use logic and reasoning
Well,
to.
I'm going to get there. Yeah, I'm going to explain what I mean by that. But like separate, okay. I'm not trying to um, load things. I'm just trying to get a straightforward answer for this one question, which
Okay,
is
well, if you don't mind, then if we could, I don't know if I don't think you're trying to necessarily, but if you could just ask the question instead of like doing a thing like that leads up to it.
yeah,
That
I wasn't sorry. I thought I originally asked the question. Okay, so let me just ask this question straight up. Do you think that we should, or based on your values, do you think that there should be an organization of our preferences based on consensus, right? For the most part, right? I know we're not always going to agree with moral consensus, but based on your values, based on your preferences, do you want laws? Do you want things that support the consent, the preferences that we approve of, based on the consensus?
I hope you don't take this the wrong way, or when I say the wrong way, see, there it goes again. I hope you don't take this in a way I don't intend, but um so I'll word it because the words that you use, right, should, and I just want to make sure this is clear from where I'm coming from. So I'm going to change the words that you used, because
Okay.
those using those words will not express what I have to say from my position.
Okay,
So
sure.
so I can't say that I think we should do this, and you already understand that. So I'm just changing the wording.
Right.
But I would say
Do you want a world like that? How about that? Do you want a
I
world like that?
do like a world where they're given that it's unavoidable, the powers that exist between beings that can act. I like a world where there are laws that are in alignment with my preferences. Sure.
Okay. Okay. So, but you agree with the concept of laws, right? Like you think that
No,
laws, no, you don't
I,
agree with the concept of laws.
I wouldn't say it that simply. Like, to me, laws are inevitable. To me, a law just represents something that someone says you are going to do, or else there is going to be some repercussion for it that's going to be acted out by me, the person with the sufficient power to carry that out, right? Or the person or group, right? And the way I see the world, that's going to happen inevitably. So I can't say I like this. What I say is I see that this is an inevitability. And when there is a system in place in which there are laws that align with my preferences, or that I can assimilate to with ease enough, then that aligns with my preferences, because
Okay.
it's not as difficult as some other system where it is more difficult, but it's not as beneficial for me and my preferences as some other system that aligns better with my preferences.
Okay. So you would want, okay, so based on your preferences, you would want to see a world where something like the preference for murder is rejected lawfully, right? Like it's illegal to carry out murder.
Well, murder is typically used as like a legalistic term. It's like a legal term that's just like a killing that is illegal, or a killing that is deemed
Sure,
wrong.
sure. Okay, the killing of one human to another, like that would be, you would want to see that be illegal based on your
No,
preferences.
not in all cases, right? Because like if I kill somebody defending myself.
Oh, dude. No,
Right.
okay. Okay. Not self.
Well,
Okay.
let's
Not
so
self-defense.
wait,
That's why I
wait.
said murder. Okay.
Hold on,
Homicide. Do you want
hold on,
homicide?
hold on. Homicide is a legal term. I just want to like chill this out a second so that it doesn't
Sure.
go off. I can see that you're getting frustrated. I'm just trying to be as clear as possible because there are so many ways for these words to be loaded. And
Okay.
I've seen this happen so many times I can't even count. I can't even begin to count where a word is said early on and it has some loading and it's not addressed. And then it's brought up and it just goes off
Okay.
the rails. Misunderstanding from there. So we can take as much time as we want. I just don't want you to get frustrated. Like, I'm not doing this to obfuscate or intentionally frustrate or anything like that. I have to be very clear
Okay. All right. So I think all right. I
because
think I
because
understand.
because this gets to generalizations unintentionally, I think, a lot of times. And so that's like that murder thing, right? Like killing, like not all killing is something I'm necessarily going to be against. That's
Okay,
all.
but murder, which is the like you said, the unlawful killing, or like when it's not killing in self-defense, right? Like murder, do you want to see murder be illegal based on your
Well,
preferences?
how about this? How about this? There are certain types of killings that I don't want. There are certain types of killings that I'd like there to be laws
Okay,
to
and what
prevent.
kind of killings are those?
So like a killing of, I don't know, we take an example of like a I don't want to say sociopath, just someone who's inclined to murder for whatever, or to killing in this case for whatever reason, and it would be murder in this case, who just might randomly come up to somebody to uh, to kill them.
Yeah, so
Just
murder, so
like
kill somebody when they
randomly.
don't want to be killed, essentially.
Well, I mean, someone who's
Not in
killing.
self-defense, not in self-defense.
Right, right. Like if somebody's killing somebody else and they still might not want to be killed, but they're just
Right.
killing, we would
Not in
call it
self-defense. Yeah, not in self-defense.
innocent in quotes person, right? And so, and then there can be further discussion about what innocence means because that's really important too. And so
Sure.
law.
Okay. So you also said something in the last debate that, and I think this happened towards the end, where you were saying, well, your preferences are just your preferences, and you don't really understand why it is. It just kind of, it just is, right? And
Kind of.
kind of, my question is, do you think that our preferences, or what we maybe organize into morals, can be changed via argumentation slash debate? And I use an example we talked about last debate with the racism. Um, you mentioned how I said, okay, if there's somebody who's racist, somebody who thinks that, you know, whites should be in charge of blacks, or, you know, they should be unequal. You said that you don't want that, or you don't like that. You would, um, and then you would do whatever it takes to stop them from enacting their preference, right? But
Well, it
my,
depends depending on the
yeah,
circumstance.
yeah, yeah, obviously. But my question is, it almost sounded like last debate that you were wording it as though the preferences we have are not changeable. They're not reasonable, right?
That,
So,
that's not what I meant to imply at all. No.
okay, okay. So you agree that preferences can change, right?
Oh,
We
of
could,
course. Yeah.
okay, okay. So,
I don't think we're just born with preferences and they're fixed forever. And then like I have stated, my preferences have changed. Obviously, I used to be vegan and now I'm not. So, yeah,
sure,
of course
sure.
they can
And when I
change.
say, so last time you had an issue when I said justification. I guess what I mean by that is, right? Um, what is the, like when I say justification, I'm asking for what exactly is the reasoning behind certain behavior or actions being a preference or being allowable in whoever I'm talking to's particular worldview, right? So if somebody says, right, I have a preference, I'll use, and we don't have to, this is just an example. If somebody says, I have a preference for killing animals and turning them into a burger, and I ask them what the justification is, what I'm asking is, what is the reasoning behind that preference? Because I'm trying to argue my reasoning why I don't have that preference to try and get them to change that particular preference. Does that kind of make more sense? Because I feel like last time I didn't do that good of a job explaining. Does that make more sense?
No, that's exactly how I thought you
Okay,
were referring to it last
cool,
time. And
cool.
then
Okay.
I explained thoroughly how I see a concept of justification, which is distinct, um, and how preferences come from, and how the things that you tell yourself about your preferences are narratives which are underdetermined psychologically. And so you tell yourself and others these narratives about why you have come to this position you have, but it's not necessarily complete or even accurate in any way. And that a justification, as I see it, or giving reasons, is an explanation that comes to your mind about why you have the position you do. And as we've seen through plentiful psychological evaluations, this is underdetermined. This is you aren't as not you aren't as certain about why you have the position you do as you may think you are.
Well, I'm sure maybe, but that's the thing. That's why I think reasoning behind preferences is important because, for example, you also last time I feel like made the claim that sentience is arbitrary, where I guess like in the grand scheme of things, I guess it is just another line in the sand. But the
I should
reason,
I should say it's kind of like a foundational assumption or presupposition or kind of something like that. I don't know if arbitrary is necessarily the best word,
okay,
but
okay,
even if though I may have said that, I may have used that word myself. I'm not putting that on you. I'm just saying, just for clarity there, because I know some people might hit back on that and be like, well, it's not a whim, I've thought about this sort of thing. And it's like, well, okay, that's not like there's a connotation, like a colloquial usage, I think, to arbitrary, which if we flesh it out, just means something like it's just a subjective line that just occurs to you, like when you feel something is the case, or you have an intuition about something, um, or you've resolved upon something through a significant amount of thinking, but that ends up being your preference at the end of that line of thinking.
okay.
Um, you're convinced by it. And the being convinced by it still has like a lot of mystery to it as well.
Yeah, so but the reason why like sentience is a preference for me, right? I do preference like sentient beings versus non-sentient, so like animals including humans versus plants, is because of the reasoning, right? Like if somebody has an argument, if somebody has a better justification or a better argument as to why my preference shouldn't be sentience, or as to why, my preference should be something else, I'm open, like my preferences are always open to change, right? They're always changeable. They're constantly changing, right? Even if it's very small, in small ways or whatever, um, based on facts, based on reasoning, based on, feelings, whatever it is. So it's not that um, I just decided that sentience is my preference for no reason. It's because I haven't heard a better argument to change that preference for sentience. Um, so
That's fine. I mean, I'm not here to try and get you to fundamentally prefer something other than sentience.
no. I just want to, because again, sorry, I was just saying as I was rewatching the debate, I like how you said you want to be very clear. I think I definitely left a couple things just like out. So I
Oh,
want
okay.
to make sure. Yeah, I just want to clarify because
Gotcha.
I'm glad that we're on the same page where preferences can change. Obviously, you said that that's a given. So, um, now a couple extra things, right? So, do you agree with the consensus that other non-human animals, particularly mammals and birds, can feel pain and or suffer?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Um, okay, so in your worldview, based on your preferences, do you want to see a world with less suffering?
No. I mean, we kind of went over this last time, right? Oh, you said you had some more questions about my views on suffering, and maybe that's where some things could be
Maybe,
clarified.
yeah. So let's go. Maybe let's pause on that because I do have more questions. Yeah. So you mentioned last time you stopped being vegan because your philosophy on suffering changed. You want to break that down a little bit?
Yeah. I can try to hopefully this is like different enough from the last time, but still, conveys the same substance as there's kind of this like maybe like an intuitive approach to suffering calculus, if you will, that people seem to have, where you say like, oh, there's one person suffering, that's bad. Oh, there's 10 people suffering, that's worse. Oh, there's 1,000 people suffering, that's 1,000 times worse than the one. And I, upon a lot of reflection and looking at what some other philosophers have said about it, now that I found that there have been other philosophers who've thought about that, there's I don't see any I don't see how it's reasonable, or how you can calculate suffering in such a way where the more individuals that are suffering makes something worse, or makes a world worse, or makes it so that the suffering is combined. And we talked about this quite a bit last time, because I remember you like granting that and saying like you accept that even.
Yeah. So what that makes sense. So not the calculable, but what does that have to do with the individual that's suffering? So what
Well,
I'm asking is,
there will always
sorry. Go ahead.
individuals suffering. I mean,
I know.
I don't.
I
So
know, but
there's
sorry.
no so there's no reduction.
No. My question is, because my question was, so you said you don't align, or you don't agree with the like calculable suffering or whatever, which is fine. That's fine. But you do grant that like individual suffering. Okay, let me ask you. In your worldview, would you want to see less individual suffering?
Not necessarily, no.
Not
And
necessarily. Okay,
right.
so
Do you want me to like explain?
yeah. Please go for it.
Also, by the way, I've been going about 30 minutes on this like one way thing. And as I told like the people in like the numerous people I interacted with in that one comment thread on the last video, I one thing I like about you is you're open to have a back and forth. Like of every person I interacted with there, they tried to make it a one-sided interrogation. And then when I tried to put my foot down and say, okay, I'm going to need some response from you and some interaction and some more context, and get actually, because philosophy takes a lot of time and the concepts are deep. And it's not just these quick one word catchy one liner, I got you on this one thing. That's a trick. That's a parlor trick. That's the height of sophistry, right? So, and that's one thing I have against the NTTs, because it tries to guise this logical argument that really just works with loaded language to trap a person into an emotional appeal, which is logically fallacious. So that again, I think is the height of sophistry. But I'm just going to point this out here. I am going to want to come back a little bit with some questions for you, and also stopping on a point to explain some of this stuff. So when I say not necessarily less suffering, what I mean is it depends on who it's for, because that's going to be anything that affects me. That's going to be where my preferences align. This is where I see consistency happening. I act consistently with the things that I feel a preference for. I see inconsistency happen when people create these like universal laws and these universal categories that they say someone needs to be consistent with all entities inside that category, when they don't actually feel a preference for all entities within that category. I'm consistent with my actual preferences, not some ideological universal group that doesn't actually affect me in the ways that it is being said to say. So when I say I don't necessarily care, I just mean there's more context to it. It depends on the situation, right?
Okay, so let me be more specific. Do you want to see a world with less human suffering?
Yeah, I think so, because I see that as a case where, it would likely affect me and the people that I care about. And so that's to a degree. I mean, because there's a degree of it, right? Because in some cases we allow a certain amount of suffering for some other sort of pleasure, right? Like, oh, I know that the suffering of like eating this kind of food that may occur down the line because I'm more likely to get cancer, it's more associated with all-cause mortality or whatever. But I'm enjoying this pleasure now.
But
And
that's for
so
you. So that's a
not
decision
not
for
not
your.
not, not just for me. Like say you cook food for people, or that you say let's go to this restaurant or let's do this thing. You're like encouraging it or whatever, right?
Sure, sure,
So
but that's all consent, like that, like seemingly that's all consensual. And in the case of you making maybe like the wrong quote unquote decision for yourself, whether it's fast food, whether it's going partying, whether it's drugs, whatever, that's kind of impacting yourself, right?
exactly my point.
No, no, but my question is like when we're talking about a world with less suffering, that typically requires people to refrain from causing that suffering in a lot of ways, right? Not all suffering is caused by humans to other humans, but a lot of the suffering in the world is caused from one human unconsensually usually unconsensually causing that suffering to another human. So if you're saying, because a lot of people did comment, and I don't want to go off comments, but I want to get an understanding from you because when I ask, do you want to see a world with less suffering for humans? You say yes, because I could suffer or the people I love could suffer. It almost sounds like, and I mean no offense when I say this, I genuinely want to understand. It kind of sounds like you lack the ability to make preferences or to have preferences based on empathy. Like it's almost as if you're only able to have preferences based on yourself and maybe your relationship to the people in your life or animals in your life, like in your cat or something, but you're not able to actually put yourself in the position of other individuals, even people you don't know, even animals you may not have interacted with, who can
That's not
also experience suffering.
that's not. I know you don't. Like you said, you don't mean anything intentional or insulting, and I believe you. But it's a misguided thought that you have right there.
Yeah, please break, because that's what it seems. Because when you say,
I've definitely felt that before. That was a reason why I was vegan. It was a conceptualization of a certain, like applying a certain type of empathy. This is one of the questions. This touches on a question I had for you about this empathy thing, because I think it's an interesting topic. Um, and it goes into the generalization thing, like I keep bringing up in response. And what I wanted to ask you was, when you feel empathy for, like, say you were to hit a dog, like say you were driving down the road and you were hit a dog, and you see the dog and it's bleeding out, and it's like whining, and you feel that, like you feel it, you may even cry, you know, or say on the brighter side, you see like cuteness or something, right? Like you see a little kitten, you're attracted to that. You're just like, yeah, I want to just squeeze it and cuddle it, and you feel that. Um, and these feelings that are occurring within you, oh, what do you think is the reason for that? Like, why do you think that happens?
sure. Okay, we have a minute and 20. Do you want me to restart? And we
Oh,
could start with me answering the question.
yeah, nice call, nice watching the time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're so we understand, your question is, what is the reasoning behind that empathy I feel when I see that kitten or when I see that
Oh, no,
dog?
no, no. That's one thing I wanted to be clear about too, because I thought that might be something I didn't convey clearly, was not what is the reasoning
Oh,
behind it.
why does it happen?
Why do you think that happens to people, to
Okay,
humans, or
okay,
to
okay,
whatever it might happen to?
okay. Here, let me restart.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
All
just
right,
fine.
cool. Cool. All right. So to answer the question, um, you were asking, why do I think it happen? Why do I think the process of like empathy happens, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, I mean, again, there's people far more qualified to give that answer, but if I had to give my guess, a good educated guess, it's probably a combination of a lot of things. probably some biological. You know, we're designed to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of somebody who is suffering or somebody who is experiencing well-being, so that way we can either avoid it or find that out for ourselves. It's probably because we have the ability to process complex emotions. So when we do see an animal squirming in pain, we're able to um, take those emotions and mask it or apply it towards our real life, or imagine or use our like thinking based on those feelings to imagine what it would be like to be in that situation. I think it's also just I think there's a lot of different reasons as to why that would be happening. I think logically, you know, if you see somebody suffering or someone suffering that is very similar to you, or you have an understanding based on science and facts and whatever else that this animal or this person is suffering, you can then again understand what it would be like for you to be in that situation. So I think it's probably a complex mix of a lot of things.
Do you accept a theory of evolution? I think that that has anything to do with like the empathy we feel, how it might be like a pro-social behavior, and how that like was like an evolutionary advantage or something to feel this way, and then it promotes like social grouping and social protection and then propagation of the species, things like that.
I think that's part of it. I think that was the first thing I alluded to, where I'm sure it's biological, you know, like for the advantage of like staying alive, passing on our genes, etc. Yeah, I'm sure that is a possibility. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did look at the comment thread on that other video that you broke down, and it seems like your position is coming from a place where everything is purely off of instinct, it seems like, or everything's purely off of, almost from an evolutionary standpoint, based on that back and forth. Not everything, but a huge like. It seemed like you were saying that the inclinations people have are um, based on like almost like largely based on biology or evolution. Is that accurate or?
So you're talking about the free will one? I guess that's the only other video I
Yes, yeah, the free will one. Yeah.
it wasn't actually supposed to be available. It's just they wouldn't allow me to post it um privately, so I had to find another. Anyway, yeah, so something like that. Yeah, that's pretty much the way it comes to me, the way I've seen it through various types of attempts at seeing it in different ways, and that's how the reasoning settles in my mind. Yeah.
Okay. And that I mean, obviously it's hard, like I don't think there's been any hard evidence to say that it's only this or it's only that. So it's hard to know exactly where these things are coming from, right? It could be, you know, largely
Like I said, like it's very much underdetermined what we know about it, right? So, or what we think we know about it, even, right?
right, right. And that I would agree with that. I mean, um, you know, there is definitely more to be discovered. There is definitely more to be understood. But I guess what I'm missing here um, is how like how does veganism not align with your preferences? That's just the reason why I'm asking these questions, or why I was asking the questions I was asking prior, is um, I'm trying to understand what your preferences are, and trying to understand how veganism or how a vegan lifestyle does not align with your preferences. Because like you said, they did at some point, right? Or it did at some point, right? So at some point, not wanting to contribute to killing animals or the suffering of animals just for a burger, right? Just for things that you don't need, um, did align with your preferences. So I'm trying to understand what about that. Like, here's the thing: I really I like philosophy. I like formal debate. I'm like a more of like a spectator. I'm not really a philosopher. I I like this. I like listening to philosophy. But at the end of the day, like there is suffering, right? Like you said, you agree with the consensus that animals do suffer, not other non-human animals suffer, like birds and mammals. There is human suffering, there is animal suffering. And I want, based on my preferences, to find a solution to reduce that suffering for humans and other sentient animals as much as possible, right? That would obviously not like a genie situation where we reduce that and then everything else goes to shit, but you know what I mean? Like, that's what I want. So I'm trying to understand what you want, because I would say that anybody who does want to reduce that suffering as much as possible, right, within necessity, I guess, aligns with veganism, which is why I'm confused, because when I say you should be vegan, most people, if I ask them, hey, do you want to see less suffering in the world? Yeah, of course I do. Yes, I do. Okay, do you understand that animals can suffer? Yes, I do. Yep, dogs who suffer, they all feel pain. Okay, do you want to see less suffering for humans? Yes, I do. Yep, of course. So veganism perfectly aligns with our worldview. So I'm trying to understand what about veganism doesn't align with your preferences.
Well, yeah, I think it's for one thing, it's the simplified way that it's put. Like, that's a very simplified way. Like, name the trade is also another thing where it puts it in this like kind of very simplified reductionist view that I don't think aligns with how the world works, the way I see it. And I think people who say that, I think from what I see, there's a tendency for people to want to put things in a neat little box and have like a one word label explanation for everything. I think this is some issue that causes a lot of polarization of people like labeling themselves ideologically with certain categories, like the left and the right, liberals, conservatives, whatever, and then blaming other people based on these categorical alignments. Veganism is a similar thing where people are like, oh, you want to see less suffering in the world. And again, I think it's that suffering calculation that people do intuitively that just to them creates this larger abstracted ideological burden, which isn't actually affecting them on this empathy that they're using to get to this abstract notion. Right. And so that's why I asked about the empathy thing, is because I don't understand why this feeling of empathy that someone might have for a particular individual or group in a particular setting or state of mind, why that creates any sort of obligation to apply it to other beings according to some universalized standard. It's kind of like why I have an issue with deontology. Is that word familiar to you?
Yeah.
It's Kantian ethics, like just the whole just categorical imperative, like this thing is wrong by category, like that's just wrong by what it is. Like if you lie, doesn't matter, it's wrong. And then it's challenged with the whole like thought experiments of like, oh, well, if you had Nazis, come to the door and you were harboring, Jews in your basement or something from them, and the Nazis said, are you harboring Jews? And then if you lied to the Nazis, you would be doing wrong and you shouldn't lie, right? And so that's what kind of breaks holes in that. It's that kind of applies in the same way as I see it, that this universalization that people attempt is really just a flawed way of thinking. It's a way that it's something people are attracted to because they like the confidence of it. Again, it's like that rhetorical force that things have when it's a very confident stance, like it's this thing and it's universal. And so that's one reason why I'm not so convinced anymore that this is maybe that why I feel this sense of obligation that I used to, right? I feel this pull towards veganism that I used to. That goes along with the suffering thing. And also, obviously, I have a preference for eating certain things or consuming certain things.
Okay.
So
Yeah, can I
yeah.
interject here for a second? So I want to address the first thing you said, because you're saying, and again, I mean this in no offense, I really want to understand where you're coming from. You're saying that when I ask, do you lack empathy? You say no. But there's a difference between okay, so you just said, I don't
I might
understand.
I might lack empathy in comparison to other people. Sure, I'm not. I don't think I'm the most empathetic person, but I'm not
Okay.
like I never feel. I mean, I care about my cat. I got it spayed. I've been taking care of it, like
Okay.
up all night, making sure it's not chewing at its stitches. I feel,
Sure,
for
sure.
other beings.
So let me clarify, because you said, and if I misquote you, I'm pretty sure that's what you said. I don't understand why we take those feelings of empathy, or people take those feelings of empathy, and apply it to other beings, right? Or other things that it's not.
I think I do. I have a narrative of that for why they do that. It makes sense for why they do it, and I think it's a confusion.
No. That's what I mean. Not that you don't, like. Obviously, you can intellectualize why, but you don't
Oh,
understand. You don't think that that's like the right move, essentially, right? So, or in normative language, yeah.
right. Like I would just say, like, is it there's something maybe inaccurate or vague or ambiguous happening there. Yeah.
Right, but I would say that that's exactly what empathy, like the purpose of empathy, right? Empathy is a feeling, right? So like you said, let's use a dog example. So the dog got run over by a car, and we see it in pain, we see it bleeding, we see it, uh, whatever, in pain, and we get that feeling of empathy. Oh, what if this were my dog? What if this was me? This animal is clearly suffering. I suffer. I can understand what this animal is going through to a certain extent. So that's a feeling. I think that feeling then turns into action, right? Based on us not wanting to see this animal or another person suffer like that, like we just saw, based on our empathy, right?
Sure.
So if you're saying that, you think it's a confusion, I would say that having those feelings of empathy and then doing nothing with those feelings, like the reason why, I think it should be applied consistently, because even though today I may not be a cow in a slaughterhouse, I very well could be, especially if we're not religious, right? I'm not religious. I don't know where you're coming from, but it sounds like you're believing the theory of evolution. We're kind of all here based on chance and based on a lot of, underdetermined, like you said, variables. So yes, like even though me as a white person, I am not a black person, right? So the suffering that happens to black people, that's not happening to me, and I have no reason to care from an individual level. But when I can relate to that person, and when I understand, when I have empathy for that person, that's where I go, okay, that could be me. I could be in that position, and therefore I want to protect individuals not beyond myself that can suffer similarly. So that's what I'm missing, is like,
Sure.
I understand it, you
And
have.
I agreed
Okay.
with that for like the racial thing. I think in our last discussion, and this is kind of like a cost benefit analysis that we do. What whether or not it's likely that that could be us. We have to kind of weigh at like the like. So are you saying, like, imagine there is some sort of being or civilization or something that treats us as cows, like me, not you, would treat cows
Yeah.
now, and that if we are consistent about this now, that's somehow going to affect this other being that might treat us this way or not, like
No, no, it's
that would somehow diminish the possibility that we might be treated that way.
not necessarily, but I think that when it comes to, like we said, reasoning, right? So like if that being's preferences are to have a tasty human steak, right? If that's the preference of that being, I'm going to use the same argument, the same logic and reasoning as to what I'm using against humans who want a tasty cow steak, um, against those aliens. And again, whether the oppressor can be, beaten, or can be fought off, whether the oppressor can be reasoned with, that's a whole nother conversation. Maybe not, right? But the point is, the logic sticks. The logic
Well,
is consistent.
you keep saying logic.
Yeah,
I
the reasoning, the justification
No,
for
no,
why.
no. There's no logic here, though. You feel preferences, and you're applying it preferentially to this abstract notion. And then the argument you're providing to them is that I have these preferences for this. And then they could be like, oh, that's great. I have preferences to eat you.
No. The logic and the reasoning comes with why I have those preferences. So like we said, like I asked you at the beginning, you think that preferences can be changed based on reasoning and argumentation, right? So when I hold the preference, right? So when I hold the preference, I don't want human beings, right? I don't want human beings that are sentient, they can feel pain, they can suffer, to be eaten, right? Or to be killed. Logically, I'm going to extend that to other beings that are also sentient, that can also suffer.
That's not a logical extension. That's
It is
just
a logical extension.
No, it's just another preference you have. It's not what's the logical formula for extending the one to the other?
Sure. So if I'm saying, right, so if I'm saying that my preference, right, so I do not want, like the preference is for the sentience, right? It's not just human. I'm not saying I don't want.
You're putting that's why I keep bringing up. You keep putting this preference on a preferential abstracted line of sentience when it could be reduced to anything.
But what I'm asking is,
your preference.
I'm okay with you reducing it to anything, but I'm saying that my preference, based on the best reasoning and argumentation I've heard, is on sentience. If you have a better argument as to why it should be reduced further or where the line should be, I'm open to hearing it. Right? So it's not.
What I'm pointing out is that this isn't logical. There's no logical requirement or logical entailment for it to be at sentience. That's your preference. It's not a logical entailment to apply this to sentience or to like sentience or to prefer sentience as an abstracted line or category. That's simply your preference.
Hold on. No, hold on. Time out. So if the reason why I don't want humans to be killed is because they have purple ears, for example,
Okay.
And then another creature of purple ears comes along, and I say, screw it, kill that creature. And somebody says, why? The only reason why you don't want humans to be killed is because they have purple ears. That's logic. It's the logical extension that, based on my own reasoning, if my trait in this case,
it's an oversimplification. This is another hypothetical issue.
It is. No. I'm saying based on that's why I'm trying to understand your position. Because if somebody asks me, hey, why do you think it's okay to turn cows into burgers? And I say it's because they have floppy ears, right? That's my value, right? I'm not putting words in there. Like, someone's not putting words in my mouth. So I am telling the person that's asking me, because they have floppy ears, right? So to test that reasoning, I'm going to think of another scenario, right? Okay, well, if it was a golden retriever who had floppy ears, you told me that you prefer floppy ears, you value floppy ears. So why value one set of floppy ears but not the other, right? And they either have to come up with a different trait or move the goalpost, or they are inconsistent. Now, that doesn't mean, like we discussed last time, that people have to value consistency. And if you don't value consistency, then, I'm just not going to be a big fan of you.
But this is like a loaded framing. You're creating a perfect hypothetical that doesn't take into consideration these other things. Like when you tried to name the trait on me, I gave you these other reasons and these other ways of looking at it. That wasn't just, oh, it's a simplified floppy ears, and now I need to come up with some other thing. And so that may work on some people who haven't considered this thoroughly, but that's not for one thing. For the second thing, this is still about preferences for sentience. Now, if you're making this argument, right, and you're saying, look, I'm being consistent, don't eat me because I value sentience. And then the other person that wants to eat you goes, well, that's great, but I don't draw the line at sentience on my preferences. There's no logical entailment there that creates some sort of obligation. It's still your
No, no, I
preferences.
didn't say that. No, no, no. So here's
Oh, I'm
what.
sorry if I misunderstood you
Yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah. Let me clarify, because like we discussed last time, I didn't say that sentience is the only way to be consistent or to be logical, right? You can be logical and be for murder, right? So you can
Well,
be.
but
Go ahead.
there's also another thing too, because I didn't want to get like narrowed into this corner of sentience either, because as I brought up last time, there's there are other things. It's not just sentience. I know the vegan who proposes this likes to just focus on the sentience, but as we pushed it back to last time, it's not just sentience. There's other things you consider. And also something came up where I was thinking about when someone reduces something to sentience and then say, well, I'm being consistent. Um, it doesn't really it doesn't really give any benefit to the fact of sentience as being a value itself, right? Like, because humans, so all sentient beings that we know of are carbon-based life forms, right? And so we can reduce it to beings that are carbon-based life forms. And then so someone could say, well, then I want to protect all carbon and
You
I want
could,
to value all carbon, right?
you
And
could, but
but
I would push back on that.
well, that's fine, but all it does is just show a different preference that you have.
Correct. So I don't. So this is what I'm. I am okay. I am advocating, just like us and a whole lot of other vegans. We're advocating for a particular preference based on the facts of the slaughtering event, based on a lot of things, based on facts of the environmental impact of factory farming, based on the
Yeah,
harm it does to animals. So
it's
we're
facts.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's
So
a lot of facts that anybody can base anything on. It doesn't. I just want to point out that
what do
the
you mean?
not going to be any like rhetorical weight of facts as though that's like making something more
No, no, no.
up.
What I'm saying is you're I feel like you're saying, well, you're advocating for a preference too. Yes, I am. Yes,
Mhm.
it is a preference. But what I'm asking is, right, this is not like some absolute um um I don't know, objective preference, right? This is a preference that makes the most sense to me based on my understanding, based on my logic, my reasoning, my argumentation, whatever it is, my feelings, whatever.
You keep saying logic and reasoning, and I'm not seeing why how you're getting where the logic is. I just see your preference.
No, no, no. But no, no. The preference is one thing. And then the actions I take based on my preference, the
No, no,
consistency of those actions
you said
are where the logic comes in.
no, you said you get to this through logic and reasoning.
Sure, sure. So for example, right, maybe not a lot, but argumentation or maybe arguments, right? Or I don't know if that goes in. Yeah, I think that would be logic. So for example,
Well, I just think I think someone might say that a good argument or a valid argument or valid and sound argument would be one that contains strong logical consistency. Sure.
sure. So when
Like,
I say, yeah, so when I say I got to the preference of sentience, right? I value sentience, right? It's because, again, when we look at why sentience should be valued in my worldview, when I say should, I mean for me, or I guess whatever you want
just
to, why I want to value sentience, if you want to put it that way, is because sentient beings can suffer, right? They can feel the pain that's inflicted upon them. They can experience the world from a subjective consciousness, right? Whether it's
sure.
to the extent of humans or to the extent of dogs, whatever.
Right.
And plants can't, as far as we understand, right? So
Right.
when I'm creating a worldview or when I'm creating a set of laws, or I would say when I'm trying to create a set of morals that I want to share with people to create a consensus, right? When we're trying to create a moral consensus or a preference consensus, that's my argument, right?
But
And if
that's not an argument though. There's no logical entailment there. That's just you stating what your preferences are. All you did there, if you see what I'm saying, all you did there was say sentient beings can feel pain, plants can't. I don't want sentient beings to feel pain, so I'm just going to eat plants, something like that. All you're
Right,
doing is
but
stating your preferences. There's no logical entailment that it should be that way or not. You're
okay,
just saying these are my preferences.
do you want sentient beings to suffer?
What does that have to do with what I just said? We were talking about the logic and how you're getting to from, you said you use logic and reasoning through arguments to get to where you're at. I asked where the logic is. You said, well, there is logic because I see that sentient beings suffer, plants don't. I don't want sentient beings to suffer, and so I'll eat
So
plants because
the
they don't. So,
right, right,
all you did
the
was state preferences. There's
right,
no
right. So
logic.
those are preferences. The logic is, for example, right? Humans. Hold on. I'm not. I think you look. I'm not that well versed in formal logic or formal philosophy, right? I'm not going to be the best one for this job.
We're being
But
super formal, and we don't have to do a formalized thing or anything. I just want to point out that it's fine, right? Like you obviously are okay with feeling the way you feel, right? And that's enough. And I think that's how people behave. That's people act. That's how people go about making their choices. It's just that when I would, you might, if you're saying logic and reasoning, it sounds like you like the idea of consistency. And if you're saying logic,
correct.
but you're not like actually showing a logical structure or a logical entailment in what you're saying, that might not be what you're intending
Yeah,
to
so
do.
I could come up with I could come up with a foregone, right? There are people who are better at formal logic, but my point is, right? I guess what I'm saying is, um, based on my preferences, right? My goal is to be logically consistent based on the preferences, right? So, like I said with the floppy ear example or whatever it is, right? So, what I'm trying to understand is based on your preferences, do you care about being consistent? What about veganism? So like I'm trying to understand what your values are, and I feel like you're answering my questions, which I appreciate, but I'm still kind of lost as to um, how veganism does. So like, and again, I think to ask the question again, do you want sentient beings to suffer?
Do you see how that's very like a very narrow framing of a question?
How is
Do you?
that? I'm just asking. Do you want to? I'll even be more specific if you want. I don't know.
Well, no, I think that the idea is that it's too narrow. Like, do you have a mom? Like, is your mom alive? I don't want to get personal. I just want to
Yeah,
make
I
sure I'm
have a
not
mom. Yeah, yeah.
okay. Um, have you stopped beating her? Yes or no?
I haven't started.
Well, I said yes or no. It's
But
a
that's
yes or
not the
no.
question I'm
Have you
asking.
stopped? Have you stopped beating her?
Hold on.
Yes.
Hold on. Okay. I
Well, no,
didn't
no. I know it's a loaded question. The point of it is to show how a loaded question
hold on.
works.
So when I ask, do okay, when I ask you, do you want humans to be murdered?
You
Right?
asked if I want sentient beings to
No, no,
suffer.
no. Back to the original, way back in the start of the conversation. I asked, do you want humans to be killed or do you want humans to be murdered? Right? And you were able to pretty clearly give me an answer. Well, in the case of self-defense, obviously no, or obviously that's nuanced. But for the most part, I don't want humans to be killed unconsentingly or whatever it is.
Yeah. And it's not that I can't do that here. I'm pointing out, and I did a lot to point out the context of the individual words in that, right? So I'm just bringing this up again. And so I wanted to take the time to provide an example of a loaded question, right? And what you said here is, do I want sentient beings to suffer?
Yeah.
I've said numerous times throughout both of these discussions a lot of detail about how it's contingent upon particular instances, upon the scenario, upon how I'm feeling based on that, my relational concept of that person in my world, in my
Okay.
reality.
So let me
Right?
ask it. Yeah. Let me ask a different question.
These, these like
Okay.
simplified questions just don't really capture the context of our actual lives.
Okay. So I have some more questions because again, I'm just trying to to understand your worldview. That's all. I'm not trying to do a gotcha. I'm literally just asking these questions.
And it's
So
not that you're intending to. I'm just pointing out that this is
sure.
what we're working with here.
Okay. So do you want to contribute to less suffering in the world? Do you personally want to contribute to less suffering?
Again, it's difficult that I do you not see how narrow of a based on everything I've said, do you not see how narrow of a
Just generally, if you have certain instances where you think you should contribute to more suffering, that's fine. You could explain that. But
well
generally, do you want
one
to
of
contribute to less suffering?
like one of the things I've been very careful and thorough to point out in this is the misplaced universalization and generalizations of things.
How is that be? I'm all I'm asking is based on your worldview,
You said
do you
generally.
want to contribute to less suffering?
Again, this is a generalization. You're not talking about what category, you're not talking about what situation, you're not talking about what group or individual.
Okay. Let me be more specific. If you want to be
I've been
more
very
specific,
careful.
okay. Do you want to contribute to less unconsensual suffering on other sentient beings?
Yeah, see, you're talking about sentient beings.
I'm
Again,
asking a specific question. It's like,
you're
I'm not just
creating.
asking, do you like food? I'm asking, do you like
Can
pizza
we
with pepperoni on it?
can you calm down? You're what you're doing is I've done such a thorough job here of explaining the context, and you keep omitting all the context to come back to
What
this
context?
one.
I'm just asking you a question.
I know, and you've interrupted me yet again.
Sorry, go ahead.
While my point,
Go
I've
ahead.
done a thorough job of explaining all of this context and explaining that this type of framing, it keeps coming down to people wanting to use a one word universal line of sentience. And I've already explained that it's not just about sentience for you. We got that into the last conversation. Yet you keep narrowly constructing these questions, and it's like I have to do unpacking on like four of the words within that question. And then it's going to be this, oh, he's dodging the question. He's not answering he's trying to avoid. This is the same tactic that
Well,
keeps
no.
getting.
If you want clarity, like if you want clarity on something about that question, I can give you clarity. But just to say that, like you can't answer the question. Like if you want
I,
clarity,
I, I can answer the question with a lot of context because there's a lot
sure,
of
ask the context. What
loading.
context do you need? So when
I
I
don't need.
ask, sorry, when I ask, do you want to see a world where you, or sorry, do you want to cause less non-consensual suffering to other sentient beings? Please, what clarification do you need? What do you need?
I don't need clarification from you. I'm just pointing out that I have to unpack that to explain. Like it's not just going to be a simple yes or no.
Okay,
Like
so
obviously, so there there's certain assumptions that are made about consent, certain assumptions are made about sentience, certain assumptions are made about um
what do you mean
contributing.
certain some assumptions are made about consent? What do you mean by that?
So, like I said, there's a ton of unpacking I need to do, and I'm beginning to explain. So, first, I'm categorizing the different words in there that have a type of loading or an expectation from people, right? When people come into this, like when people come into a discussion about sentience, they have some preconceived notions, some presuppositions about sentience and how people are going to feel about it and how they feel about it and consistency and all of these things, right?
How do
So
you feel about sentience? Maybe we could start with that. I don't know.
okay. I'll be happy to explain further or again. Like, um, so sentience, I can agree with the word. A definition of the word is just like what beings that can experience pain and suffering have an experience, a phenomenology of some kind of experience of the world, and that includes some level of consciousness, pain, suffering, experience, whatever, something like
Okay,
that. Okay, beings have this property of sentience. Some of them do, right? Some beings in the world have this property of sentience.
sure.
Okay. And so some people come into a discussion about sentience already having a presupposition that it has some kind of value, like that it literally has value. Now, I don't know what you think about value. You're a subjectivist when it comes to morals. Sometimes people, they like distinguish their views on morality with like their view on values. They still think like something contains value, even if they think they're like the morals are subjective and something doesn't contain a moral value or property, right? So when this comes to some, like, people see it in the vegan community or otherwise, they have their own like presuppositions about value, and that can be attached to sentience. I don't see any sort of attachment of value to sentience. So I'll put it this way. I have like a story, a small story or comparison or something to say, like, if there's this moral loading that people put on situations, right? And if I were to say, I don't want to do yard work, I don't want to do physical labor, I want to pay somebody to do it, right? No one would come to me and say, oh, you're not being consistent because you're not doing it yourself. You're paying somebody else to do that. That's wrong. So since you're not being consistent, you can't actually say it doesn't align with your views that you actually want this yard work to get done because you do it yourself, right? It's kind of like with the
wait, how is that inconsistent?
Yeah, it's not.
No, but that's not, no, but that's, so if you're saying that the view is I want my yard.
That's one part of the story. There's another thing to compare it to.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And I agree. I don't think it's inconsistent. And then when somebody says like, oh, you wouldn't want to kill that animal yourself, you would feel bad killing that animal yourself, or if it was happening to you or something like that.
I don't use that argument. Yeah, I don't use that argument.
Oh, no, you may not. But then I say, well, I have pay somebody else to do it for me because I don't want to do it. And someone says, oh, well, you're not being consistent because you wouldn't do it yourself.
No, that's not being inconsistent. Yeah, I agree with you.
Sure. You may not use that yourself, but there's a kind of conception that people have when it comes to sentience and when it comes to dealing with sentient beings, animals, non-human animals, whatever. And so that's why I want to be careful to explain these things thoroughly, right?
Okay.
Now, when you say, would I like to see a world, or do I want to contribute to less non-consensual suffering in the world? Yes, when it comes to certain beings. Now, when you frame it that way, like, oh, so you're okay with causing non-consensual or contributing to non-consensual suffering or not preventing non-consensual suffering in the world? Yeah, everybody is.
Wait, no, whoa, no, you mischaracterized me, right? No, you actually did something. Hold on, whoa, I gotta interject. Hold on, I gotta interject.
How did I mischaracterize you?
Yeah, I'll explain. Because you first said cause. I'll explain. Hold on.
Talking about you.
No. You changed my line. You changed my line of questioning. Hold on. You first said cause.
We have less than a minute.
Okay, really quick. You first said caused, and then you changed it to prevent. There's a difference between cause.
No. I was just saying. I was just including all of those things.
They're different. They're two different things.
I know, but I'm including all of them. I want to just make sure that it was all included. It was all there.
Okay, but okay. Hold on.
We can jump back into it when we get back there.
Yeah. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right, man, just a heads up, this is my last round. Again, I can't do more than 2 hours at a time, but I like the conversation. I mean, it's interesting. I just, yeah, I mean, there's one thing that you ended on that I wanted to touch on. You said, when you did answer the question, you said about the suffering or not causing suffering. You said yes, but only for certain beings, right? So it's clear that your preference isn't on sentience, right? It sounds like you don't care about necessarily about preventing or not causing harm to sentient beings. It sounds like you have a preference for something else, right? So what beings fall within your preference of like you wanting to protect or not cause harm to?
Hmm. I've answered this a couple of times. And so,
Well, last time correct me if I'm wrong, but last time it sounded like your preference was just human, and your not the species human. I know we're gonna get, but your preference was like your psychological relationship and connection to other humans, but not all humans. Certain humans you connect to, but then in some certain scenarios, your dog or your cat you'd value more. And I think this is where like people in the comments and myself, I'm asking you for NTT, because like, sure, you can say that. And if that's a hill you want to die on, of, well, I just preference humans in most cases, but some cases I will prefer my dog or cat, let's say in a burning fire, and I don't know the human, but I know my cat. But what I'm asking is like, okay, because the reason why I got upset, or I got upset about the word choice, is there's a difference between preventing and causing, right? I can't prevent all harm to sentient animals, right? Whether it's sentient animals or sentient human animals, I can't prevent all harm. If I had the option to, like you conceded to last time, you would press that button, right? If we can stop all suffering to humans with a press of button, we would do it, right? So,
and why did I say that? Do you remember the context? Because this is going to be like a huge sticking point for me, because
sure.
this keeps coming back to these kind of like simplistic forms of framing. And like all of these discussions I've had from like you and your community, and I spend a lot of time providing context, and it keeps coming back around and the context is omitted. So I just have to ask, do you remember what the context for that was?
I don't, you like, to be honest, very vaguely. So please, why would you press that button?
So there's a cost benefit analysis that goes into people determining how things are going to affect them or might affect them. When the hypothetical is proposed, it can't be done in a vacuum, because then it doesn't relate sufficiently to like the real experience we have, where we live in a universe and our choices could affect the probability of something happening to us. And so I would do so mainly with the thought that it would create, if I didn't, if I did, it could for some reason cause an effect such that, if I'm involved in that, then I might be spared as well, or the people I care about might be spared as well.
Right. So you're just thinking about yourself, right? But when in a hypothetical, right? In a hypothetical, you can put a hypothetical in a vacuum, right? I know you don't like hypotheticals.
No,
That
you're wrong. You're just wrong.
Well, you didn't let me. I was going to say hypotheticals in a vacuum. I was going to say.
Well, it depends. If you put it in a vacuum and the vacuum sufficiently removes the necessary context to apply it to the situation, then it's disanalogous, because you're omitting the thing that is a necessary relation for my preference.
Well, a necessary relation for you, and that's what I'm trying to understand, because
that's what you're asking me.
No. For example, if you ask me if there was a button and you could end all human suffering, right, or unconsensual human suffering, would you press it? And I say yes. And they say, okay, what about if you were not affected, right? There is no risk of you suffering. You're safe. You're never going to suffer in your life. All this button would do is prevent others from suffering, right? And let's say your whole family's safe, right? This is
not, see this, I can't believe you. I can't believe that scenario.
But I'm trying to understand what. No, I can't. Please, if you let me.
I can't give. Well, no, I'm clarifying. I'm telling you why I can't believe. I can't give an accurate, which I don't think I can give accurate anyway. But I can't even get close to giving any sort of
Okay.
a confident answer because I don't believe that scenario.
Okay, but like what I was gonna say is, if you ask me that scenario, I'm still gonna say I'm gonna press the button for
That's
a
great
different.
for
No.
you.
Hold on. I'll explain. Hold on. I'll explain. So the first value, right? So let's say, okay, you press a button, you end all human suffering. Okay, why do you press that button? Well, I don't want to suffer. I have loved ones who I don't want to see suffer. That's why I pressed the button. Okay. Next scenario, there's a button, and you and your loved ones are safe. So we're essentially removing the initial preference you gave, the initial reason for why you pressed the button.
understand this.
Hold on,
This
no.
is so
You gotta let me get.
simple.
You gotta let me get to the end. You gotta let me get to the
But
end.
you keep repeating the
No,
same things
please,
that
please.
I
Well,
already understand this.
look, if this is kindergarten for you, at least for the people watching at home, they'll get some amusement. So, they say, like you said, well, I would be concerned about my well-being, my loved ones' well-being. Okay, that's the value you gave. Okay, so let's remove that. Now, none of that is in play. The button stops suffering for the rest of the humans, separate from you and your loved ones, right? And now, whether it's me, whether it's you, whether it's this random person, this hypothetical person, if they say, oh, in that case, I wouldn't press the button. Who cares? I'm safe, right? That tells me that their preferences, that tells me that their values are solely about themselves, or maybe the people they're in relationship with, or they're in relations with. Now, if they say, oh, I would still press the button because I don't want to see people suffering, right? I value well-being. I value sentient beings that can experience well-being. I want to see more well-being in the world, even if I am not in any danger. That tells me about their values. So what I'm trying to ask you is are you solely, and the people you're in contact with, the only preferences or the only values you have? Or do you actually take your empathy when you see a random person or a random dog getting hurt or suffering and apply it to your preferences or your actions in your life, right? Because based on your answers, it sounds like you are unable to actually take
Dude,
action.
stop assuming. Shut up. Stop assuming. You're asking a question and then you're like packing in all this assumption afterward.
Look, I'm sorry.
What are you
I'm
doing?
having a really hard
What are
time
you
over here
doing?
understanding
What
where
are
you're
you
coming
doing?
from.
Stop it. And then
Okay, go for it.
that thing that I told you about earlier, where you say something loaded and then ask a question. Now you say something loaded, ask a question, and then are adding assumptions on top of it afterward.
Okay, well, I don't know.
Dude,
How
let's
said
have a
was loaded. I said it was
conversation.
loaded. Sorry,
Keep
go
it in
ahead.
check. I know you're getting really excited with the vegan thing and like interrogating somebody. Like
Well, no, it's not
that's
interrogating. I
no,
genuinely
it
want to
is.
know your
That's the
preferences.
language game that happens within this community. I interact with it day in and day out. It's the same pattern. Like, but look, getting to the first thing, you're saying it tells me something about your values.
Mm-hmm.
You think it tells you something about my values. I've been trying to explain to you how values work for me for hours now, and you're still not getting it because you're still asking the
I
same
don't think
question.
anybody's getting it.
I
How
don't
does
care
that
if
not
you
tell
don't.
me?
I don't
Hold
care
on.
if you
How
don't
does
think.
that not tell me something about your values?
Saying. I don't think anyone's getting it. It's just a rhetorical tactic you're taking. All right, saying I don't think anyone's getting it. I don't care if no one in your biased vegan community gets it.
Uh-huh.
And
So-
I don't think you know that no one is getting it.
So
You're
how-
saying I don't think anyone is getting
Correct.
it.
It's an assumption.
But
Correct. So
well,
how does
stop
that
it with
not
the
say something
fucking
about your values?
assumptions, dude. Stop it.
Hold on.
I'm telling you, you don't get, you're assuming that you're getting something from my values. And I've tried to explain over and over again that these values, I don't see them that way. Okay. When I talk
so
about
you're saying you don't have values?
Do you want to have this conversation with yourself? Would that be better for you?
No, I'm genuinely trying to. I don't mean to keep interrupting.
What did I say? Quote something I said where I am even implying that I don't have values or that I don't, or something like that.
So if you are saying that how you answer a question doesn't tell me one of your values, then we must have a different understanding of what values are. So
okay.
Please.
So when I've explained this generalization of values that people make in an abstracted form, like you can just apply it universally to everything, that's misguided. You don't actually feel that way. You're not crying about every single person that's suffering in the world right now. You can think of a whole ton of them. You don't feel from that. You feel based on your experiences with individuals in circumstances, based on your psychology in those moments, based on your mood, based on your experiences prior to that. Okay. And you're abstracting into this generalization. And that's what you're doing here. You're coming at it with a presupposition of sentience. You're coming with a presupposition of values, as if they have to be, oh, well, if you say this thing, then that is telling me something about your values, and it must apply universally to all of these things. And I'm telling you, you're wrong about that.
I'm not even saying
that is not how I come about values.
Hold on. I'm just asking you a very specific question. Like, for example,
you're assuming a lot within this. You've stated your assumptions.
Hold on. You're saying
that you've loaded this with assumptions and your presuppositions.
Hold on. I'm not saying that an answer to my question tells me a value that you hold infinitely or for every scenario. I'm looking at the specific scenario in the question, right?
Well, then you don't need to talk about values in this way. You can just talk about the one thing. You could talk about things situationally. Why would you then be trying to create this hypothetical that talks about entire categories universally and omitting all of this context if you could just deal with this on a case by case basis?
I know what you're saying. Sorry. I know what you're saying. Yeah. So in that case, yes, value. So what I'm saying, yeah. So, yes. So when I'm out, yeah. Okay. I understand. Sorry, my bad. So when I'm asking you a question, right? I am asking, when we say value, we're saying preference. Right? Value, preference, what we value, what we prefer, right? So when I ask you, right, again, if we go to that hypothetical again, would you hit a button, right, to end all suffering, right? I also find it interesting how with the initial hypothetical, where there's a button that could never exist, right? There could never be a button that would exist where you could just end all suffering. But you're able to answer that hypothetical. You're able to answer, well, yes, I would press it, but it's because of the harm and sweat. But once we take out your initial reasoning,
well, it's because of that psychology. It's because of the association.
So what you're saying
that's the factor. If you take that out, there's no way I could even act on it. It'd be impossible
hold on.
to.
So hold on. So what you're saying is,
so if there's no reasoning that occurs, it would be impossible for anything to happen from reasoning. So you're saying
that's the only reason
Are you saying that something could occur from reasoning if you remove the reasoning?
No, I'm not asking you to remove. I'm saying that's your only scenario, that's the only reasoning you have to press that button, is because me and my loved ones could be or we could be harmed. If that's your only reasoning, then I don't know, like, that's not how, look, maybe there's a difference in preference, maybe there's whatever you want to say, but that's not how I want to live my life, and I don't want other people to live their life just based on what can harm them and their loved ones. If that were the case, a lot of things that we have nowadays, or a lot of harmful things that we used to have, would still be in effect, whether it's slavery, whether it's other forms of discrimination, factory farming. Like, the reason why people are,
no,
I won't say the reason, but
why I would be against slavery. That's why I'm talking about the real world and the real interactions between human beings. Right. Okay, that's why when you've omitted, see, now you're like running with this thing with all this omitted context and then building off of that. That's why I said don't remove the context, because then you just run with it and you're assuming all of these things. That's like, well, okay, that's why I want to deal with real world situations.
Okay.
Not trying to create a straw man argument off of the omitted context from this hypothetical that
isn't
realistic.
So let's look at a real world situation for a second. All right. Let's look at slavery. Okay. Whites. Let's look at American slavery specifically. Okay.
We've already been through this.
No. It's important. So white people enslaving black people, right? In that scenario, in that real world scenario, there is no possible, in that scenario, obviously in hypothetical scenarios there would be.
You know what you're going to say, and it's not true. I've already explained.
How is that not true? Hold on.
Because I said because when being against something that happens to humans from other humans, you're structuring how things happen in the human community. Okay. That's what I am for when it comes to human activity upon other human groups. And since I could just be another group where the power shifts to that, then I want to promote a type of
Okay.
civilization, right? And I don't think that for non-human animals. I
Okay,
don't give a
but
fuck about
why?
that for non.
But
Why?
why?
Because I said it's a cost
What's
benefit
the
analysis.
reasoning? Like
I'm
what?
telling
Why?
you, shut the fuck up. I'm
Go for it. Go
telling
for it.
you.
Okay, cost
Just
benefit
shut your fucking
analysis.
mouth
Okay,
then.
go for it. Go for it.
It's a cost benefit
Uh-huh.
analysis of saying, and gambling, I don't think that's going to fucking happen with non-human animals. I'm not concerned about that. And if an alien comes down and wants to eat me, I'm not going to be able to say, oh, but my preference for sentience, so don't eat me.
Okay.
I don't think that's compelling. It's not logical. It's
Okay.
just a preference, and it's laying preferences at different lines. And I'm not concerned about non-human animals having that effect, but I'd like to promote that in human communities where it can shift balances of power between different interhuman groups.
So you're saying it's a cost benefit analysis, right? So you're against slavery because you recognize that it's black people today, but it could be your
shut the fuck up, by the way.
I get it. It's black people today. It could be your race tomorrow, right? That's a cost benefit analysis. In your mind, statistically, or the odds are high enough to where you'd be against that. That's what you're saying?
In my mind, yeah.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, what if in the adult pedophiles who assault children, in their mind, cost benefit analysis, it could never be that they could never be that child. They are never going to be targeted
I'm sure they think that. I don't care if they think that.
Okay, but does that mean that they should be allowed to carry out pedophilia?
Would I say that? Are you missing everything I've said? Stop. You're missing everything. I've explained this thoroughly for the past several hours we've talked, and now you're framing it in this way. So you think they should be allowed? I spent so much time breaking this down, dude. Are you really that dense? Come on. I spent so much time breaking this down. So then you're still framing it this way with this fucking vegan dialogue tree bullshit.
My God. So why are you
keep trying to go back to this?
So why are you against? Why are
I don't
you
know
against
how
pedophilia?
to get through to you.
Why are you against?
I don't know. I have a repulsion to it. I was molested when I was a kid. I don't like it, and I'm against it. I don't want to see that in humanity. Okay, because what it causes in humanity is a number of bad things. It causes people to have bad outcomes psychologically, and that leads to other bad effects for society that I'll have to deal with as well, whether it comes from tax burden or affecting other people through criminality or shit like that. It has all these downstream effects, which I think are significant enough that will affect my life and the people that I care about, that I don't want to see it happen.
Okay. And I'm sorry to hear that, but I understand. So what I'm trying to understand, right? And that makes sense, right? Everything you said makes sense. What I guess where I am coming from, right? Because that's your reasoning. What I'm trying to say is I'm against pedophilia. I'm against slavery. I'm against all of these oppressive actions because they harm a being that can feel those actions. If there was a way,
I get what your preference is. I don't need you to repeat it to me.
But what I'm asking
ad nauseum, dude.
What I'm asking
I get that your preference is that you don't want to see this happen. I get that you don't like seeing it, and so that's your preference, and so you're against it. I get that.
Right.
Great.
But
do you want to repeat it again?
But what I'm saying is, hold on. Do you like to see animals suffering?
No, I don't like to see it.
So then, and again, this isn't like a so then why would you contribute to that suffering?
Because I don't have to see it. I know that it's happening nonstop all the time.
Okay, but when we are creating a system, right? If you don't like to see something, you are contributing to something that actively puts that into the world.
You are contributing to it too, with your own continued existence. We've been through this before. You have a preference. Hold on. Don't say no. Hold on. That is true. I get you want to run from that, and everybody in your community wants to run from that. But then stop saying no. Hold on, because by your continued existence, you are causing that. You are causing that, and it's on the death and suffering of all the countless sentient beings that you get to continue your existence for your own preference.
So there's a symmetry breaker, right? So in the case of I agree.
What's the symmetry? What's the symmetry?
I'll tell you. There's a symmetry breaker, because you're saying that
I know what a symmetry breaker is. Yeah. I'm saying what's the symmetry that needs to be break.
No. You're saying that they're symmetrical. You're saying that
No, I'm not saying they're symmetrical. I'm
Okay.
saying that this is also something that it's preferences, right? You can't compare preferences as being symmetrical.
No.
They're
You were.
preferences.
I would. No. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Just to understand how we got here. I asked you, do you want to see animals suffer? You said no. I don't like. No. I said, do you like to see animals suffer? You said no. I said, then why do you contribute to animal suffering? You said, because I don't have to see it. Okay. And I'm saying, what's it called? Well, then why would you? And then you said, hold on. You said, well, you contribute to. Oh no. Hold on. Fuck. I said, why do you contribute to it? You said, because I don't want to see it. I said, fuck. I totally lost the train of thought. The point is.
I didn't lose the train of thought. I asked you something and I said not to run from it.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
now I don't want that to happen again.
No. Before you asked.
You caused the death and suffering of countless sentient beings for your mere
Oh,
preference to
here we go.
continue
Yeah.
existing.
Sorry. Thank you. So, there is a difference, because last time in the last debate, I did admit that is a hard question, right? Why do we
you think there's a difference? I don't give a shit about intentionality.
Well, I could make an argument. If you don't give a shit, fine, but I'm going to make the argument. But
go ahead, make an argument for it if you think it's an argument.
Sure. Last conversation, you did. I did admit, that is a hard question. Why do we get to exist? But there's also a lot of other factors. Like, for example, yes, we do use resources. We do use land. We do grow crops on land that animals could exist, that animals probably have died from us driving cars, from us doing things. But I would say that there is a big difference, whether it's intention, but also actual, our actions, how they're carried out, between creating a system of breeding these animals into existence to then kill them
and then you're going to say all these loaded things. Yeah,
I get it. That's what we do.
No, it is.
That's literally what humans do.
You're painting this visual picture for your vegan audience to feel bad. You're appealing to emotion with all of this imagery.
But do you not feel bad?
What it comes down to, the difference is simply your preference.
Hold on.
That's what it is again.
Wait. But when you see slaughterhouse footage and you know what you're contributing to, do you not feel bad?
Actually, not usually, not anymore. I accept it as a reality.
But
I know it happens.
But it doesn't have to be.
It absolutely does. Again, you're missing
slaughterhouses. Hold on. Do we need to have slaughterhouses?
Hold on. No, hold on. The death and suffering of all these beings is going to happen.
No, because we breathe them into existence. It's not just going to happen.
Not these.
You said these. I'm sorry. You said these. Sorry. Go ahead.
I did say these, but not these specific beings. Yeah. Everywhere. So remember what I said about suffering calculation?
Okay, but does that mean we should just...
This is irrelevant.
I know, but does that mean that, like, we shouldn't try and prevent murders? We shouldn't try and prevent rights violations? Because if you're saying that, well...
No, what? Now you're conflating the human group with non-human animals, which I already distinguished too from my view.
So you're saying that, hold on. So you're saying that
dude, you can't track any of this, or you're just deliberately, you're just so vegan brained and biased that you cannot fucking track. Okay. You keep loading stuff, you keep reframing things that I've already corrected dozens of times. I'm getting too frustrated. I'm getting way too, like, I can't believe how frustrated I'm getting. I've explained these things repeatedly, and then you keep coming back to this preconceived, formatted thing that is just this typical vegan argument.
It sounds inconsistent.
They can't engage with any context. It's not inconsistent.
Hold on.
I'm the one that's consistent.
Okay.
And I've explained how I'm consistent. You're creating this abstracted fucking universal that isn't actually consistent with the way you feel in situations. You're applying it in some generalized way. I act on how I feel.
Well, first of all, we shouldn't always act. We shouldn't always act on how we feel.
Why shouldn't we?
Well, because some people may feel like they want to rape somebody. That doesn't mean they should be.
They do that, and that's how they act.
Doesn't mean Right, but we would both agree
and then
that
I
they
take
shouldn't
action,
act
and
on
then
that.
I'll vote against it, or I'll take action against it if I see it when I have those preferences against those things in those cases. You're again, you're just appealing to some objective thing by saying, oh, we shouldn't do this. But remember, it comes back to your subjective preferences. So you can't actually
No,
make
no,
an
based on
objective
our
claim. So then
preferences. I'm saying
so
we shouldn't do that based on our preferences, you and me.
no. You're saying somebody else shouldn't do that, or that
No,
if
they shouldn't be allowed to
they
do
shouldn't be
that
allowed to do that based on
based
preferences.
on their
But
feelings.
when you yeah,
Because
feelings, preferences,
because their
inclinations,
actions
these are
are
the things that they are driven to
right, but their
do.
actions are causing harm to somebody
Yeah,
that can feel that harm.
that's yes, totally.
Okay,
I
but
know you're repeating things that we've
okay,
already gone through in detail,
I'm
but you're just framing them in an
I'm just
oversimplified way, thinking that
I'm
it's going to be an appeal to emotion.
I'm just
I
trying to
get it.
okay, I'm just trying to understand why you wouldn't. So, okay, in the animal circumstance, right? So in the animal, fuck.
I don't know why
Hold
I
on,
get so
hold on.
frustrated about
Give me
this
1
stuff.
second. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Thank you.
I don't know why I get so frustrated. Why do I get so frustrated? Just having a conversation. It's okay. I'm not being understood, or I'm wrong. Whatever, it's fine. I don't need to be frustrated.
No, it's frustrating, man. I'm with you, dude. It's all right.
I know, but I just like I I don't know why I'm yelling.
Here we go. So you said, fuck. Hold on. You really gotta give me a second. I had it and I lost it.
It's okay. Like,
thank you, man. Thank you.
we could probably use a pause anyway.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So you were saying that when you see slaughterhouse footage or animals in factory farms getting slaughtered that you actively contribute to, you don't feel bad because
So,
you reckon.
well, sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. I guess it depends on it depends on like the moment, really.
Okay. So it depends on the day, the time, whatever. But the answer you gave was not typically or whatever.
Right, like I could still eat meat while I'm watching it. Like it doesn't compel me to not do it. It's not sufficient for that. Yeah.
Okay. And when I asked you why you don't feel bad, you said because I recognize or I've accepted that this is a reality that beings suffer, right? You said it's a reality that beings suffer, or that animals suffer, if you want to be more specific. Animals suffer.
Just beings, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. But now, and this is where the consistency part comes in, because you're saying, right, that, okay, I don't feel bad that I'm contributing to this suffering, I'm causing the suffering, because I recognize that beings suffer. Generally, in the world, beings suffer, it's a reality. Okay. So then, when it comes to the human context, humans are beings, they're included in that beings. Humans also suffer. There's no way to stop all human suffering. So why wouldn't you say, okay, free for all on human suffering? Why would you want to prevent human suffering when you don't extend that in the animal case? And if your answer is going to be, well, because I have a preference, because it could be me, what did you say, a cost-benefit analysis, then we're just going to have to agree to disagree. Because here's the thing, I don't want people to act on what they think is the cost-benefit analysis. Because we could have all been cows. We could have all been pigs. We could have been dogs.
I don't think we could have. I think that's a false way of conceptualizing yourself, and it's an anthropomorphication.
Why couldn't
anthropomorphization of, well, because that doesn't make any sense. It's a law of identity. You wouldn't be you and be a cow. That's impossible.
No, I'm not saying I would be the same me. I'm saying I could have been born into that group. But
you couldn't have.
No, not like the internals of me.
Well, then stop saying, well, that's what you are.
Experience.
Well, that's what you are. Or do you disagree with it?
Okay, but
that's what you are?
Okay, but me being a white person, right? I could say, well, I could have been born as a black person. And someone said, no, you can't do that. You can't empathize with them because you're white.
No, that's not what I said. I didn't say you can't empathize. That was not even an implication.
But You're saying I can't
and
make
you
that
don't,
connection
no,
because I'm me?
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Because
okay, sorry, go ahead.
it's not about you not being able to be a black person. It's about how powers can shift between different human groups, and then it could be upon you, the actual you, not you trying to say you could be something else that's not you.
Right, but
Because
you see how that's a
logical contradiction.
right,
You
right,
realize that, right?
but you're making a hypothetical, right? So in that scenario, you are
Yeah, I said I
okay.
like hypotheticals as long as they're valid.
Okay, but what is it? You haven't explained how my hypotheticals are invalid. You haven't
No,
explained it. They're not logically impossible. They're totally analogous to the
I
situation.
thoroughly explained. I
Okay.
thoroughly
Well,
explained how when you remove the reason for the action, and then you say, how could you act on this from reasons? That's a logical contradiction. You cannot act on reasons if there are no reasons to act
So if
on,
I remove the
right?
reason for the action,
So
the answer should be easy. The answer should be no, I wouldn't press the button. So
well, no.
no.
If
Please.
you remove the psychological reason that
I'm not
is
removing
a
your
required
psychology. I'm not removing your psychology.
You are, because the scenario requires it for my preferences.
The first scenario, but not the second one. That's so
it doesn't relate to reality if the psychological aspect isn't there that would result in me talking to you and conveying to you it in the real world here.
Okay.
That doesn't it's not connected. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so if we go back to the button,
and remember what I said about logical impossibility last time?
Well, no, you could just say I'm repeating words, but you haven't demonstrated that my scenarios are logically impossible. So
no, that's not what I said about logical impossibility last time. Logical,
they can be logically possible, but still be disanalogous. I remember, still be disanalogous. I just don't see how my scenario is disanalogous. And again, I'll let you talk. Sorry, go ahead.
Like if you don't see it, you don't see it. I
explained
it. Like I've explained it thoroughly. Like when you
Mhm.
remove the psychological requirement to have it applied to the real world, I cannot tell you what my real world psychological action would be. There's just a logical absence there.
Okay,
there's a logical disconnect because you've removed the logical necessary operator there. That is the thing that you're referring to.
So what it sounds like you're saying is that I removed you. I removed your psychology, which I didn't. In the scenario, right? I'm just testing your logic, your psychology, right? So in the button scenario, you say I would press the button because it could be me and or my loved ones.
I don't want to loop back on this, dude. I've
But,
already explained. You don't understand. I get that you don't get it, but I've explained it sufficiently for my satisfaction. I've explained it repeatedly. That when I tell you it's my psychology is a requirement for this because that's where the actions come from, and then you remove the entire reason for the psychological property to be there, then I can't tell you that I would take the action because it's a completely different world. It's not me. Say no. It's not reality.
So in that scenario, so if you're saying I remove the psychological reason, right?
Then I can't tell you what my psychological reason would be. No, you would say I wouldn't be me in that situation.
I'm not removing you. I'm asking you a question based on who you are right now. I'm not.
I know, but then you're taking away the aspect that is necessary for the situation.
No, I'm not. You can still.
I just showed how you did. I just showed how you
critically think.
No, I just showed how. No, I just showed how you did. I just showed that. When you take away the psychological reason, it no longer exists. And then you're saying, how would you act if you weren't you?
I'm not asking if you weren't you. I'm asking how would you act if we just took out that one aspect of the hypothetical. Now it's a different hypothetical with that one aspect removed. Now
the aspect is required.
It's not required for you to answer the question. It's not required for you to answer the question.
The aspect is required to relate to the real world situation that you're asking me about right here.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
You're not.
No, it is not.
You can keep repeating that it's not. I'm showing how it is.
No, you're just saying it is. You're just saying it is. You're just saying
no, I'm showing you have a psychological response to a certain feature of the world. Then you take away that feature, you can no longer have that psychological response to it.
But now it's a different world. Now it's a different world.
And yes, and it doesn't apply to yes, and it doesn't apply sufficiently to this world
because the first one didn't apply to this world. The first one with the buttons
sufficiently. Sufficiently, you moron.
Based
Sufficiently.
based
The first one
what?
applied sufficiently for the purposes of that hypothetical. What you removed after that made it not sufficiently apply to the real world, which made it so that I couldn't answer for my psychology because that aspect was removed.
But that just seems convenient for you to say. You're just saying that so you don't
Now
have to
you're just
answer the
reverting
question.
back. Oh, that just seems convenient. This is
That
just
seems convenient
These
for
are
you
the
to say.
stupid ass vegan talking
answered-
points. Oh, this is just an
Okay.
excuse. Oh, this is just a vegan.
certain
This is just a vegan.
hypotheticals.
This is just a vegan
You
thing.
won't
This
answer
is
other
just a vegan
hypotheticals.
thing. I can say
because-
that too. This is just a vegan thing.
Okay.
You're just saying it's an excuse.
You won't answer.
And that's what you do. You're going back to like, oh, this is convenient for you.
So
oh,
you'll
this is
answer?
No,
You'll-
you know why it's convenient? Because it's fucking logically consistent. It's true that when I say the psychology is required for that to relate to the real world, where my psychology actually is, and you remove the thing,
I'm not
then I can't
removing
tell
your
you how it would. Then it doesn't
I'm
apply
asking
to the
you a
real
question.
world.
What are you talking? How?
It
hold
doesn't
on.
apply to the real world.
Hold on.
It doesn't apply.
Hold on. How is taking out the risk of you being harmed in the button scenario removing all of your psychology?
Because that's not how the real world works.
The button isn't how the real world works. The button isn't how the real world works. But you can answer that one. You can answer that one perfectly fine.
Oh my God, you're so dense, dude. A hypothetical, something can be not completely analogous to the real world, but there's sufficient analogy to be able to apply it to the real world. When you remove that sufficiently analogous detail, it's disanalogous. It no longer applies sufficiently to the real world for me to give you a real world answer.
If both hypotheticals are applying equally as insufficient or sufficient.
I explained to you that the whole reason was because in the real world, there are these human relationships. There is this human interaction. There is going to be an effect on me potentially. It's unavoidable. That's a risk.
That's what the point of the hypothetical
is. I know. But if you remove that potential risk, it sufficiently takes it out of the real world scenario where I can't answer it honestly. Because that's not how the real world works.
But somebody could say, when you add a button that ends all suffering, that is sufficiently takes me out of the real world scenario. That's not how the real world works, so I can't answer the question. You're just coming up with an excuse to dodge the question. That's literally what you're doing.
No, I'm not just coming up with an excuse to dodge the question. Your vegan fucking brain is just making you say that.
I don't think so.
You like how that works?
I don't think so, man.
Well, you don't have to think.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't think so, man.
I think what you're saying
is
sufficiently
it's just our preferences.
taking us out of reality.
And it's true.
I can respond to it, bro.
No, you're being stupider than you even can conceptualize right now.
Right.
No, because when my psychology is the key ingredient, I can say, put these things in a hypothetical that relate to your experiences and your psychology. Okay, that's a hypothetical that works. That's why the first button hypothetical works. When you remove the psychological aspect that's contingent for that psychological state because of the relationship of people in the real world, then I can no longer answer that. That sufficiently makes it disanalogous.
You could still critically think. You could still think about that scenario.
I am critically thinking. You're the one who isn't understanding the disanalogousness of it.
It's a yes or no question. Would you hit the button if you and your family members were sick?
There you go again. Now you're going back to the vegan fucking loaded.
Hey, we got
yes
less than a minute, dude.
Maybe there it is again. It comes back up. The vegan yes or no question. You can't get out of it. You're so biased. You're so biased. You can't critically think.
It's about to end.
And you've already said your whole agenda here is just to try to appeal to emotions to get the preferential world.
No, not appeal to emotions. I wanted to understand your preferences.
You're
and see if they get applied.
You're appealing to people's preferences.
I wanted to understand your preferences
animals because you have preferences too.
Clearly you lack empathy. I don't know, dude, but
I don't know. See, that's loaded too. Lack empathy.
God,
people have different levels of empathy. Oh my God, dude. People have different levels.
We have less than a
empathy.
minute. It's gonna time out.
No shit. I know.
I
it's all
appreciate
preferences and emotions. Appeal to emotion. Keep appealing to your echo chamber on emotions.
Maybe
say you're
we
talking
will
logically.
do this again.